Even if a new technology comes out or a company that's cheaper, they don't want to switch because you're the company that remembers all the things they like. And as a result of that, there's true loyalty. Most people, everywhere they go, at home, at school, at work, they feel underappreciated. So if they just go to anywhere and they feel like, wow, I'm appreciated now, it doesn't matter if it's like walking in the store or doing some comic club or buying a product. If they feel appreciated, they just want to go there more often. There are so many nuances when you design for gamification, right? A lot of companies just think, oh, I have points, gamified, it's engaging. I have leaderboards, but you have to design it really, really well. Instead of saying, come 10 times and you have one free beer, it would be better to say, come 10 times and you can treat 3 friends free beer, right? So the reward is looking good in front of your friends. And they come and you're like, hey, look, I'm VIP here, so beer's on me. And impresses them, and maybe they've never been here before. It's like, hey, I want to come here more often. Maybe I want to be a VIP too, and that is generally worth much, much more than a $5 beer.
Okay, I believe that we are live. So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And so today we are going to talk about how to apply gamification to customer loyalty. And it's a great pleasure. Our guest today is Yu-kai Chou. He's gamification and behavior design expert, the author of the Octalysis Framework that we are going to discuss in detail during our conversation, a founding member of the Octalysis group, and the author of one of my favorite books recently, Actionable Gamification. I will definitely be sharing the link to the book in the description of the podcast. So make sure to check it out, because especially to those of you who are planning to gamify your loyalty initiatives, this book is going to be a great resource. So hi, Yu-kai. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So why we are running this webinar? We have released recently our loyalty trends report, and this time we have surveyed more than 200 loyalty professionals, and majority of them, they say they point to gamification as a key trend in loyalty. Everybody wants to use gamification mechanics in their loyalty programs, so it's awesome that we could discuss it today. By the end of our conversation, you will learn how gamification drives customer engagement and loyalty. You'll learn practical applications of the Octalysis framework and tips for implementing gamification in loyalty programs. So, without further ado, the first question that I wanted to ask you, Yu-kai, is how does gamification tap into customer loyalty and why is it so popular?
Yeah, so gamification is the craft of creating engagement, right? And you could kind of understand engagement connects to loyalty because actually most loyalty programs out there, they're not true loyalty programs. I call them mercenary programs because if you go to whoever pays you the most, by definition, you have no loyalty, right? And those who are truly loyal, it means that you are so engaged with the brand, with the company, that you will defend the company to other naysayers. You will stick to it, even if other companies are paying a bit more or they're a little bit cheaper, right? And this is where gamification comes in. It allows people to connect through the brand in an engaging way, whether it's through their higher meaning and purpose. So you believe that they're actually saving the world. You're actually a hero being interacting with the brand, or you feel socially appreciated, or you can express yourself and they give you delightful surprises. Those things make you start to fall in love with the brand. And that's when you have true loyalty. And I think people are starting to recognize this more and more. And that's why it's becoming more and more popular in the loyalty space.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. The mercenary programs, I like it. I love it. So if we could maybe talk about some of the success stories, especially particularly in the loyalty industry. So could you share perhaps any examples of loyalty programs that effectively use gamification to increase retention or drive any other business results?
Yeah, so there's many out there, but I'll share some more exclusive ones that from my own company that we've done. So it's a bit more exclusive content. So I think there are a variety of ones that come to my mind. Is one we did with a Porsche, one with Latam Airlines, and one with La Quinta, which is a hotel group. And it's interesting because they all focus on different things. You can kind of tell me if you want me to focus on one more than the other, but the Porsche one was more about getting Porsche drivers to interact with the brand on a daily basis with the car
Mhm.
brand, because most of the time, the drivers interact with dealerships, the car maintenance, people, or big commercials, right? They don't have immediate way to interact with the car company itself. So that was what we were trying to solve there. The Latam Airlines project was actually trying to get more people to sign up to their loyalty program. So it's more about converting people to sign up to the loyalty program, getting their credit cards, also maximizing redemption rates, not only with their own offerings, but with their partner offerings, because with loyalty miles you can do that. And then the La Quinta ones was the hotel group trying to get people to engage with their brand even when they don't need to book a hotel. And so when they do need to book a hotel, they will always go with La Quinta. And all three we had very impressive results. Do you want me to cover them in more detail, or all three of them? Up to you.
I mean, all three of them sound really interesting, but I think that we could just start with the first one that you've mentioned. So maybe let's go to the automobile industry. And if you could tell me more about this program for Porsche, because it's quite interesting, especially because, like, driving a car is an experience of its own. So I would say that all those Porsche drivers, they do have this sort of experience to rely on. But then you have this loyalty program. So what kind of experience could compete or could supplement the experience of driving a Porsche?
Yeah, and so whenever we have any type of gamified loyalty program, we want to figure out what the end goal is, right? And for the client was actually the Volkswagen Group, so they own Porsche, and we actually rolled this out in Austria. So basically they want to have daily interaction with their customers, and in effect they want to get these Porsche owners to buy a more expensive Porsche next, or even upgrade into a different car in their family because they also own Bentley and Bugatti and all that stuff. So they created a program called Boneo, and it's basically if you have a Porsche, you can download the Boneo app, and based on how you drive your Porsche and how you interact with other Porsche drivers, you
Uh-huh.
will start to level up, and it looks like a futuristic city with a virtual car that you can upgrade, you can make it cooler and more special. And as you drive, you will earn different points that you can redeem for free donuts or coffee. But a lot of it is really just looking snazzier and cooler to other Porsche drivers. But most importantly, if you keep getting more and more points, you can upgrade to another car more easily in a cheaper price. And so for this product, when they rolled it out, they saw that on average, people spend 5.5 minutes every single day using the app, and they couldn't use it while they were driving, right? Because that would be dangerous. They have
Sure.
to finish the driving, stop, and then open the app and look at what was going on and how they engage with it. And this is very important, unique for a product brand, right? Because most of the time we don't use a app with a product we buy on a daily basis. We use apps with like social media, with YouTube, with Facebook, Instagram. We use app with our works, our email, our Slack, whatever. But you usually don't interact with a brand every day with whoever sold your monitor or your computer or your car, right? And so they were pretty excited about the results there. Every day people were engaging. And so they were planning to roll out Europe wide, which I think then you would have seen it. Unfortunately,
Uh-huh.
something called COVID-19 appeared,
Yeah,
and I think you might have heard of that before. It's on your radar.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah, so a lot of those plans were put on hold, and right now it I don't know if they will continue to push through that plan, but they saw that as a huge success, and I thought it was a great loyalty program that was in a space that a lot of people don't see as regular, at least in an implementable way.
Yeah, awesome. That's so cool. So fingers crossed for actually launching in other markets as well. was this program, if I understood it correctly, like was it also the opportunity to gather some, like more data on how the drivers behave like with one another? So it's like the sort of interaction between Porsche drivers and perhaps opportunity to refer or to review or like influence other people who might be interested in buying one?
That data would be collected, but at least at the time, the goal of the social engagement was mostly to make it more interesting
Mhm.
for the driver, so to increase engagement. It wasn't
Uh-huh.
necessarily to have that, hey, we want to gather this data to reach more people because they're also interacting with other Porsche drivers with the app.
Mm.
So it's not like they were interacting with other drivers who could be buying a Porsche but don't have one right now.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
it's
But
super cool.
yes, but I think that could be a natural extension to it. Once this is established and they want to go to version 2, version 3, then I think it would be valid to start adding in a gamified referral program and better group quests. Like if you have there's a game design technique called 2P mode, which is you have a main player, but you can invite other people who aren't playing the main game, but they can support you. So this is oftentimes a design where it's like people who have a family, and then you want the users to involve their spouse to play, because if they don't play, it's because their spouse says, "Hey, you should be playing. You should spend quality time with me." So they don't
Yeah.
want to play the full game. So you give them a P mode support role that can help the main player, but they feel like they're doing something together. So that's
Cool.
something that could be valid.
Absolutely. I would also love to see some of the, like, you could, for example, reward drivers for safe driving or any sort of like, behavior that promotes this,
Yeah,
yeah,
this
safety, for example, right? So then have if we, or if there was like a leaderboard of this sort, I'm already a fan.
Yeah, there was already that safe driving component. And if you drive safely, then you would get more points and be more successful with the app.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So definitely, I would like to see that roll out in the other countries. So hopefully it happens. Perfect. So one of the things that I really wanted to discuss with you was the Octalysis framework. So I know that it's an extensive work. This is why I'm definitely going to be, sharing the link to the book, Actionable Gamification, in the description. But for those of the audience, who maybe not haven't heard yet about the framework, if you could like provide a brief explanation of the core drives within it.
Okay. So first of all, the Octalysis framework is something I created, and it's the combination between the word octagon and analysis. And as you might imagine, it's visually an octagon, and it breaks down all human motivation to 8 core drives. So everything we do in life is based on one or more of these 8 core drives, which means that if there's none of these 8 core drives there, there's zero motivation. No behavior happens. And then there's the inside of the octagon is that based on where you are on the octagon, each core drive have different characteristics. So there's what we call white hat motivation core drives, and makes people feel powerful and control. They feel good, but there's no urgency, so they usually procrastinate and action often doesn't happen. Then there's what we call black hat motivation core drives, and makes people feel urgent, obsessed, sometimes even addicted. But
Mm.
in the long run, it could leave a bad taste in people's mouths because they feel like they're not in control of their own behavior. And then we have what we call left brain versus right brain core drives, which just is a symbolic representation of emotional versus logical brain geographically in the brain. But the left brain core drives deal with extrinsic motivation, things we do for a reward, a purpose, or a goal, but we don't necessarily enjoy the activity itself. So once we obtain the reward, we hit our goals and we get used to the reward, we stop doing the behavior. And the right brain core drives deal with intrinsic motivation. So things that we enjoy doing to the point that we're even willing to spend money to experience it. And even if we lost all our progress the next day, we lose our badges, our points, our certificates, our NFTs, we would still do the activity today because that's how we measure our quality of lives, how much time you spend on things you enjoy doing. So the uniqueness about the Octalysis framework is that any company can just define a desired behavior. We want these type of people to do this type of behavior, and then can immediately map out these 8 core drives, like which core drive is motivating them to do this right now, because if there's none of these 8 people just drop out, right? They don't do it. And then how can you add more of these core drives? How can you add what we call core drive 1 epic meaning and calling, core drive 2 development accomplishment, or core drive 3 empowerment of creative feedback into the process so that people are more likely to do the action, but also be engaged and enjoy doing it. That in a nutshell is the Octalysis framework.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that it's, packed with insights. So actually, it's so hard to present it, but you did a great job with, like, the big picture and presenting the overview of what it is. How does it apply, or how could it apply to loyalty? Because this is our, this is the focus of our audience. So how could it be used in order to um, gamify, or make the loyalty program more engaging?
Yeah, kind of like an extension of what I said earlier. Number one, it's useful to have this core drive 1 epic meaning and calling in the process, which is basically your customers feel more engaged because they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And this type of epic meaning and calling can be done in two ways. One is actually through charity or philanthropy, like, hey, if you're a customer with us, we'll feed the poor so 10 kids don't have to starve tonight because you are a customer of ours, or we're planting trees, right? All those things. So that's a big meaning calling where they actually feel like, um, they are making a difference by being loyal to your brand. And of course, they're more passionate about what you're doing. They'll tell their friends about it. There's also more theme-based epic meaning calling, things that you tie to something like honor, righteousness, or freedom, and or like the Force and Star Wars, then people feel very driven and motivated because of that. And this is through a lot of storytelling, and they like the storytelling, and therefore they become passionate about being your customer and the journey you give them. And then you give them more meaningful choices. That's core drive 3, empowerment of creative feedback. Instead of giving them a linear path, like, oh, come 10 times, you get one thing for free, come 10 times, get one thing for free. You let them strategize a bit in the sense that, oh, I could go for a high risk, high reward kind of strategy, or low risk, low reward kind of strategy. I can choose one out of three things. Those are typically strong things that make people more loyal. Also allow them to express themselves better, customize their experience. That usually brings more engagement, which leads to core drive for ownership possession. If they have more of their uniqueness and time invested into your brand, and customizing things, and your brand remembers their preferences, right? Then they feel more ownership. And so even if a new technology comes out, or a company that's cheaper, they don't want to switch because you're the company that remembers all the things they liked. And as a result of that, there's true loyalty. I think there's a lot of opportunities to add core drive 5, social influence and relatedness, basically adding more social, making more collaborative, competitive, adding more appreciation mechanics to it. So when people interact with your brand, they actually feel appreciated, because most people everywhere they go, at home, at school, at work, they feel underappreciated. So if they just go to anywhere and they feel like, wow, I'm appreciated now, it doesn't matter if it's like walking in the store, or doing some comic club, or buying a product. If they feel appreciated, they just want to go there more often. So it's like a super low hanging fruit for them to just feel that, as opposed to just being a cold hard loyalty program. That's just math, right? They actually feel connected as a person. And then I think with core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity, what people don't want is a feeling of, oh, same old, same old, same old. Every time they interact with their brand, there should be some kind of surprise, delightfulness to it. So their brain kind of anticipates what's going to happen next. They want to see what you're going to show them this time. So if you add, these are not all the 8 core drive, but if you add these components into the loyalty program, I think those are the main straightforward ones. Then your loyalty program will transfer from being a mercenary program to a true loyalty program.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, definitely. It just like sounds like a plan, and all of those core drives that you've mentioned, definitely they open up a lot of possibilities for everyone out there who is planning actually to develop or optimize their program. Thank you. So you've mentioned development and accomplishment. You've mentioned how it might be applied to the program, so this is great. Was wondering, maybe do you have any standout examples? You've mentioned, for example, appreciation, or the feeling that where members or customers, they feel appreciated by the brand. Could you throw any examples out there, just for our audience to get inspired?
Let me think of a good example for that specifically. I think because there's some projects that we work on, but it's a bit more anonymous that we can't really say we work on it. So,
Sure.
but I'd say a lot of times. Oh yeah, I think, and this is not even an exclusive example. This is something that I think everyone has experience with. Like when I interact with some airline companies, and I have high status in their loyalty program, right? Not only will I get cold hard benefits, but at the counter they will say, "Hey, VIP member, welcome to our flight." They will treat you with extra care, and they will show they will remember their preferences from before. And so things like that really just make you feel like, "Hey, I want to stick to this airline more," right? Because I have this loyalty here, and they treat me well, and I feel special here. I remember this is not part of the loyalty program. I remember when I booked a stay at the Ritz Carlton hotel, which most people will know it's one of the highest end hotels.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how they did this. Actually, I still don't know. So I flew into Florida, and I got on a taxi, or it's not, I got on a rented car. I drove to the hotel an hour and a half before my check-in time. I park in the parking. I walked to the elevator. The elevator door opened, and they said, "Welcome, Mr. Chow." And I'm like,
Okay.
"Wow, how did they do that?" I have no
Yeah.
idea because my car's not registered with them. I don't know. They have to be using. It's either extremely freaky, or
Yeah.
it's like, "Wow, that's so amazing," right? And as I chose the amazing side. I chose the
The
amazing.
initial
I'm
reaction.
curious how they pulled it off. So that's the
Okay.
thing that bothers me, like seeing a magic trick. But I was impressed with it. And I think there's a slight hint of, like, what are they like doing my facial scanning or something, recognize the face, connecting the database and all that stuff. But then what I realized, every other hotel I've been to, even no matter how high end, when they didn't have them, like, see, they're not like the Ritz Carlton, they're not as good.
Yeah. But this is like a super high benchmark at this point, yeah. So you
Yeah, so I would say that I really liked it. If and for me, I'm not the type that overthinks things. Like I'm like, I prefer better service than keeping everything to myself. And this is nothing for loyalty, right? You want privacy for brands you don't care about. You don't want them to know about you. But
got
for brands you fall in love with, that you have true loyalty with, you want them to know as much about you so they can service you better,
yeah.
right?
I agree with
And
you.
yeah, and this so you gotta earn that loyalty. Sometimes it's just with good branding. So they already love your brand, and they're like, okay, yeah, know more about me because I know you are worth giving my loyalty with because everyone else says so, right? You
Mhm.
have already passionate, loyal customers. I want to be one, but most of the time you kind of have to earn it through your actions.
Absolutely. And also, if you can see, and you can actually feel that the information you have provided, or the information collected, was actually transferred into exceptional customer experience, that's fine. But I believe that this discomfort, it starts when you have this feeling that you have provided a lot of data, but still this data was not used in any way that you would like. It wasn't really improving the customer experience, right?
Yeah, that's the most terrible thing. Or like they ask you all these questions, and
Mhm.
then they give you something that seems like they didn't ask anything.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one, and this is all. I mean, customer service actually builds into loyalty for sure, right? I know it's not necessarily what loyalty program teams work on, but I'm a VIP member in Bank of America, and I had an issue, so I called the back of my car, and then there's an automated machine that asks for my details. So I gave them a
Mm.
lot of my details, my numbers. Then they patched me to a person, and then um, I said what I needed, and they said, "Oh, okay, let me patch to another person." Then another person verified my detail again, and they said, "Oh, actually, you're a VIP number. You could skip all of this by just calling the number on your card." And I said, "That's exactly what I did." And I had to verify my myself 2 to 3 times, and now
Yeah.
you tell me I can go back to step 1.
Right.
They did help me at that step, but it obviously felt like everything was kinda stupid being a VIP member.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can imagine that you didn't feel actually this VIP experience at all.
No, but I do still feel good whenever they say, "Oh, thank you for being a member since 2003," or something like that, and it's like
That's cool.
that's Core Drive 4 ownership possession, by the way. That's reinforcing, "Hey, you've been a customer for so long that you should remain being a customer," right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm like, "Oh, this is terrible service. I hate it. I'm gonna quit." But then they remind you that, "Hey, you've been a customer for 20 years now. Thank you so much." Like, "All right."
Yeah.
Like, if I quit, that would be like giving up what I've built up for so long. But obviously,
Yeah.
I didn't really build up anything. Like, my money's there. I can move it out if I wanted to. But the way they phrase it says, we already have this 20-year loyalty with each other. We
Uh-huh.
appreciate you. And then I'm like, oh, okay, then maybe I should stay for longer because this is a long-term marriage, apparently.
This is awesome. And recently we were discussing a streak as a mechanic. So basically, like
Mhm.
what you want to do is like you would like, let's say, users to come back to your app every day, but still like we tend to look at it as a from the perspective of a product. But then, as you said, if somebody is with you for 10 years, 5 years, whatever, 20 years, right? This is an awesome streak, let's say, that is happening in the background. So actually here, this is this opportunity for appreciating people like, hey, you've been with us for X years, right? This is low-hanging fruit, but I believe that the emotional impact of just like saying thank you is huge here.
Yeah. And I want to say a thing about streaks. So most people, when I think about streaks, they're thinking about Core Drive 2 development accomplishment, which is, hey, 3 days in a row, 10 days in a row, they feel accomplished, right? But inevitably, it becomes what we haven't mentioned yet, Core Drive 8, loss and avoidance, which is
Mm,
black hat, something that makes you stressed and obsessed, but potentially burning out. As long as the streak is going, people are obsessed. They will be on every single day on your app as if they care, right? But then they don't feel comfortable. At one point, they're just afraid of losing their streak. They're afraid of going on a long plane flight because they might accidentally miss it. And the moment they lose their streak, they burn out. They'll be like, okay, yeah, that was a good run, but I don't think I'll ever do 80 days in a row anymore. So let me just take a break. And when they take a break, they never come back. So that's why with streak design, you want many, many ways for people to save their streak. Like, oh, you lost your streak, but if you come back 4 days in a row again, you get to get your streak back. Or hey, every 7 days in the streak, you get one vacation day, so you can relax a bit, not be so stressed. So there usually needs to be many many ways for them to actually not get the punishment of losing a streak.
absolutely, and this is so important. Now, when you were saying this, it reminded me of a particular loyalty program that is um, like giving you points for each purchase, but each year they there is a reset. So you start on the 1st of January. So there was this moment where I was like really excited about the points that I had, like somewhere in December. I was actually planning to use them, but I was planning to use them on the like in January. So what what they didn't do well, they didn't like communicate that effectively with me. So I was a bit surprised when I just got the message like, "Hey, like you have like there's like 2 weeks left for you to use the points because it's going to be a lost." And then at that point, I remember that I was like, I had this feeling of like, okay, so now I'm being held hostage, and it's like I either like use the points right now or it vanishes.
Yeah.
So
So
for a
so
moment, it was
do you think
difficult.
that built loyalty with you?
I mean, I was still loyal to the brand because I love their product. So I knew
Yeah.
that, but I was, for a brief period of time, I was mad. I was angry with the loyalty team and with the loyalty program.
So the product team save how the loyalty team screwed up. right?
Yeah, that's true.
The
That's true.
loyalty team is supposed to build more loyalty, but they in fact reduce your loyalty, but you remain loyal because the product was great. You had a great experience with the product. And so especially this time, I'm a little surprised. Like with exchangeable points, like points you can actually redeem, having a set deadline is just like very, very sloppy design. My heart is hurting when I hear what you just said. Because even if they communicated well, right, that means come October, people don't want to participate anymore, right? They're gonna lose it anyway, right? Most of the time, even if it does reset a time period, it usually is like the status points, like points that say, "Hey, you're doing well, you're top 10, top 20." And all right, next month we'll reset and everyone gets to try again to see who reaches the top. That is more normal. It's still not great, but it's more normal. The other thing is for leaderboard designs, because you mentioned leaderboard usually motivates the top percentile, but for the mid to bottom tier, oftentimes demoralizes them. A lot of times, like if you do something, you spend time on the app and you feel pretty good and you have 26 points, you're happy. And then you look at the leaderboard and you realize number 10 has 26 million points. That doesn't motivate you at all, right? That just feels like, oh, why do I keep trying? So that's why it's very important to have micro leaderboards. It's like, oh, this is where you rank among your friends or among the bronze level people for today on clicking smiles or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to narrow it to a small enough leaderboard that, hey, I'm still top 10 this one thing, and they feel happy. Yeah, that's important. There's so
That's
many
awesome.
companies that kind of screw this. Recently, I was in a conference.
Mhm.
It's like a business conference and for business owners in Texas, and everyone paid $5,000 to attend. It's a
Mhm.
pretty high price conference, right? And they did
Yeah.
a interesting design. I was a speaker there, but they did design where they have like thousand like fake $100 bills everywhere, and
Uh-huh.
people can find them. And if you answer correctly or you do things, you'll get these extra $100 bill. And middle way through this, all right, let's see who has over 1,000. Some people raise a hand. Who has over 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. 4,000 and three people say, okay, so it looks like there are three people that are over 4,000. So you got to beat them and then you can win the big prize. And they're like, and so they said that, right? And again, half of the people only had less than 1,000, right?
Yeah.
So I came up and I was talking about what I'm talking about right now. And I said, so case in point, how many of you, when you heard that you just have to beat the people who have 4,000, you can win, and that really puts you on fire? Like, yeah, you want to play. And everyone starts laughing and said, no, probably not, right? You probably feel like you're probably just going to give up because these people with 4,000, they're still going to get even more faster. And you're just stuck at 800. And they said, yes, definitely. So the event organizer immediately after said, sorry, we screwed up our design. Actually, there is a hidden prize, below 2,000. So if you're below
Mm.
2,000, there's an Easter egg that you might get a certain number with a prize too. So they try to make it more interesting. But yeah,
Okay.
but my whole point is that there are so many nuances when you design for gamification, right? A lot of companies just think, oh, I have points, it's gamified, it's engaging. I have leaderboards, but you have to design it really, really well. There's a lot of companies says, hey, when we get points, we have like economy, so it's engaging. But how many points should give, right? Like it's like when you have an economy, economists would know that if the central bank increased interest rate by just 3%, right? Everything's different. Banks behave differently, insurance company, consumers, everything's different. But then you have these company loyalty program designers that think, okay, should it be 50 points or 500 points? Let's, put it 300, somewhere in the middle. Right? And
Yeah.
of course, the economy becomes unbalanced, all that stuff. So there's a lot of fine details to make sure people are interested at the beginning, but in the long term, it's not overinflation, doesn't lose meaning, and all that stuff. So there's
Yeah.
all that skill and specialty involved.
Absolutely, and this is a very important part because, particularly in loyalty, where actually what you want to do is like you want to make sure that the members or people who have already signed up, they see the value consistently. So it's not only like, hey, oh, this is like really interesting first month of me being a member, but it's actually, oh, I can still see value even though I'm like 3 years into the program, or as you've mentioned, like the customer who's been with the company for 20 years. So absolutely, this is great. Thank you for this tip with leaderboards, because when you were mentioning those who are, let's say, on the first, second, and third place, usually these are people who are exceptional. So the majority of members would get simply discouraged by comparing their, let's say, number of points to those who constantly struggle to be at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you've mentioned it, and this example with those like five fake $500 bills and is a very good one. I actually wanted to ask you about some pitfalls, some common mistakes companies make when it comes to gamified loyalty designs and how they could avoid them. So perhaps there is a you've seen some common mistakes that occur, and maybe you could provide a tip or two in order to help our audience avoid them.
Yeah, I'd say the two most common mistakes companies make is number one, making it to left brain extrinsic, which means that you're doing a very boring activity, but if you do this boring activity 1,000 times, you'll get rewarded for it. Yeah, so that's kind of like saying I'm gonna create a game, right? But the game will be really boring, but if you play the game a lot, you will have rewards, right? That's just not a good thing. So it's important to add right brain core drives to the experience and make the activity itself more enjoyable and fun. And that's where true engagement comes in. The other is having too much black hat motivation in the experience, because we know black hat drives urgency. So you'll see a lot of people pouring in and signing up to this when you have black hat. Like, for instance, your example, which is, hey, if you don't spend these points in the next 2 weeks, you're going to lose all of it, right? So you quickly take urgency and you quickly do the desired behavior, but you don't feel great about it. It's easy to burn out, especially if people didn't see the message, right? They were
Mhm.
busy
Yeah.
during Christmas and they realize all their points are gone, right? They're gonna likely drop out of at least the loyalty program. And so a lot of companies are practicing what we call driven design these days, which is generally good. It's sophisticated. They just look at the data and they do what works. Because Black Hat creates urgency, whenever you pay too much attention to the data, you will always do more and more and more and more Black Hat. And then people just they'll be obsessed for a short time and they'll burn out and they never want to come back again. So those are the two biggest mistakes.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I've been there. I've seen those programs, so definitely. So when we look ahead, I've already mentioned that there's this, like, gamification is huge in loyalty right now. In our report, it was mentioned as the top trend. So to all those people who are really like thinking about implementing gamified or mechanics to their programs, what would be your, let's say, top tips? Where to start, how to do it properly, so that you actually make sure that you are on the right path towards improving your loyalty program.
I would say most companies that run loyalty programs they don't have a lot of innovation execution power. So, because you said 2025, right? So we're basically like 11 months away. So realistically speaking, some of the things I mentioned, they will not be able to pull it off this year. And it's definitely possible. Like, if they were good at executing new things, then I think 2 months is what it takes. But I know many organizations, they just have it's a too sharp of a term for their bureaucracy, for their silos, all that stuff. So I think realistically speaking, the smaller loyalty programs that are very linear basic, I think what they should do is they should add some kind of leveling up progression. So as opposed to just, hey, here's some points and points can get rewards, that users can build up over time. They can still spend their points, but it's like, hey, now you're level 6, you're level 7, you're level 8. If you're a bit more advanced, higher level means more perks. Like, you
Mhm.
get your points a little bit faster, or you get a little bit of an upgrade for something, whatnot. Because there's also companies that make the mistake where they have this leveling up, but it's just like a number on the screen.
Mhm.
And you just look at it getting bigger and bigger, doesn't mean anything. But in games, leveling up means you're getting more powerful. and that
Yeah.
should be engaging. And then I think for the bigger loyalty programs, I guess there's opportunity this year for them to make it more social. Social sometimes is tricky because it involves like more privacy and how people interact with each other. But there are ways to pull it off, and like I said, you can go more white hat with collaboration type of designs, or you can go black hat with more competition. But like I said, it's just the easiest thing is to provide some type of social appreciation, and even gifting. So, for instance, like just take a random restaurant, right? Instead of saying come 10 times and you have one free beer, it would be better to say come 10 times and you can treat three friends free beer,
Yeah.
right? So the reward is looking good in front of your friends, and they come and you're like, hey, look, I'm VIP here, so you beers on me, and impresses them, and maybe they've never been here before. It's like, hey, I want to come here more often. Maybe I want to be a VIP too, and that
Perfect.
is generally worth much much more than a $5 beer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, yeah, there is this community component to it. And yeah, there's so much opportunity if you blend those drives together and play with the mechanics. So thank you so much for this idea. Okay, so it actually, I've asked all of the questions that I was planning to. Obviously, I could just spend, hours with you discussing the details of like different programs. I'm really interested in all the three ones that you have mentioned somewhere, at the beginning of our conversation. But since, the time is limited, I'm going to definitely send the audience towards the book. And I also wanted to ask you, like, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience? Perhaps your plans for 2025? Anything that you would like to leave the audience with?
Well, first of all, the case studies, a brief form of those are on our website at the Octalysis group, so they can see more, especially some of the loyalty programs. I've made like much longer 1 hour videos explaining each of them in my education platform, Octalysis Prime, if they want to go in more detail. But I think the most exciting thing for me is my second book, 10,000 Hours of Play, is launching in, I think 1 or 2 months. So
Okay, cool.
within a month, we'll launch the Kickstarter for, promoting and rallying the community. And then right after the Kickstarter, the book will be launched, and it's called 10,000 Hours of Play.
Could you, because, as I said at the very beginning, I'm a huge fan of the actionable gamification, and I would recommend this book, to everyone who is interested in the topic. So, what is actually your next book going to be about?
Yeah, so it's less about loyalty programs, less relevant, but it's about turning your life into a game. So it breaks down your life into 6 steps. So choosing your game in your life, identifying your attributes, selecting your role in the game based on your attributes, enhancing your skills based on the role in your attributes or your talents, and then building alliances. These are people playing the same game as you, but with different attributes and roles, and then taking on quests. And so for each step, we talk about how a historical successful person applied that one step and became successful, like Gandhi, Walt Disney, Oprah, Elon Musk, Leonardo da Vinci, Mary Curie. And we also see that only when people align all 6 of these steps do they become extremely successful. Like some of them have only 5 steps for many years, and they were just not doing as well until all 6 were aligned. So that's the book that I'm about to launch. And again, it's called 10,000 Hours of Play because it's based on the 10,000 hour principle from Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, where if you spend 10,000 hours something, you will become successful and achieve mastery. Where the premise of this book is that if you gamify your life, then instead of 10,000 hours of blood, sweat, and tears, you're having 10,000 hours enjoying your life, having fun, and at the end of it, you're kicking ass, right? You're doing really well in life, and you're successful, and be close to your family and healthy, all that stuff.
Awesome. So in a way, I still can see how it aligns with loyalty, because, for example, when I was like younger, there was definitely this division that you could either play games or live your life. It's as if this fun component and excitement, it was reserved for games. But in life, you do the serious stuff, and the serious stuff is often boring and it's hard. And not rewarding. But I guess that, yeah, if you approach it in the proper way, if you actually spend some time figuring out and planning, or also like apply the right mindset, it might be blended, it might be aligned.
Yeah, yeah.
Life can
At
be,
first, you
yeah.
you could literally do that. You could say step one, your game is to create the best loyalty program. That's your life game. Step two is understand your attribute talents, which will allow you to become the role, right? So, are you a loyalty program designer? Are you a programmer? Are you a marketer? Like, Where do you fit into that game? And then you have to list out all the skills you have to learn, right? For instance, you talk about gamification, you talk about economy design, right? All those things, how programming works, all that stuff. So you have to enhance your skills. And I imagine this is why people watch your podcast to enhance their skills too. You can figure out what are the alliances that you need to have your allies. The first being the right guild, right? The organization that can help you push out the best loyalty program in the world and people who have complementary skills that can help you. And then the quest, which is actually designing, pushing out, updating, maintaining, improving a loyalty program. So you could have, if that's your life game, if people are in the audience like, yes, my life is about creating the best loyalty program ever, yeah, you can follow those 6 steps and you'll get there too.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much, Yu-kai. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, thank you, everyone, for joining this video. Yeah. So, all the best. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for your new book and everything that is on your agenda. And see you soon.
Yeah. See ya. Take care.